Alright, we are starting a new unit on accentuating the negative, and in order to do that we need to expand our knowledge about the number system. So we're going to figure out new terms and different ways to group numbers together. Alright, let's start with the number line. We start with a 0 in the number line, and then the numbers keep getting bigger when we go to the right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We've studied this sort of thing. This 1 means that I have to travel a distance of 1 away from 0 in order to get to it. This 2 means that from 0 I go 1 unit, I go 2 units, and I have traveled the distance of 2 units. And 3 so on, 4 so on. So these numbers measure how far away they are from 0. This is 1 unit away, 2 units away, 3 units away. And they're all to the right. Notice it. Any unit that's any number that on a number line is to the right of 0 is a positive number. 0 itself is not a positive number. It is, you can call it neutral. It is just 0. Every other number to the right of 0 is a positive number on a number line. Okay. Well, what about the other side of 0? You can go in the opposite direction. Right's not the only way. You can go left. If I go left 1 unit, I'm still going 1 unit away from 0, but it's in a different direction. That's what this little sign here means. This little sign here means that it's in the left direction. We have a name for this number. These numbers are negatives. Now notice that every negative kind of has a partner with the positive. So this is 1 unit away in the right direction, or a positive direction. This is 1 unit away in the left direction, or the negative direction. You can, if you want to, symbolize a positive number as a plus sign in front of them. Usually we don't. Usually we see them without. If you don't see a sign in front of your number, you usually assume it's positive. Negatives, on the other hand, you see this sign. So anytime you see a negative sign, or a subtraction sign, it kind of looks like in front of a number, it means that you have a negative number. Now let's go back to what we were talking about pairing them up. You notice that negative 1 can kind of be paired up with 1. Both of them are the same distance away from 0, just in opposite directions. Look at your 3 and your negative 3. They share the exact same distance, 1, 2, 3, away from 0. 1, 2, 3. Same with the negative 4 and 4. Your values are the same. It's just one is in the direction to the left of 0 and one is in the direction to the right of 0. So we match these numbers up and we call them opposites of each other. So negative 1 is the opposite of 1. Likewise, 1 is the opposite of negative 1. They're opposites from each other. 3 is the opposite of negative 3, and negative 3 is the opposite of 3. 4 is the opposite of negative 4, and negative 4 is the opposite of 4. It works like this. So any number, if you match the corresponding negative up to the positive, you have now matched up a pair of opposite numbers. Notice, when I said 0 was neither positive, it also isn't negative. It doesn't have an opposite. It's just neutral. It's by itself. If it had an opposite, it would be itself. 0 is its own opposite. But it's neither positive nor negative, so it doesn't really have an opposite. Every single positive number that you can think of will have an opposite negative number somewhere in the number line, because as far away as it is from 0 to the right, you can pick a point and go as far the exact same distance in the left direction. Okay? So let's talk about some groupings of numbers now that we've talked about positive and negative numbers. When you're looking at whole numbers, these are numbers that aren't decimals or fractions. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. They're numbers that are not negatives whatsoever. So when you say whole numbers, you're talking about numbers you can count on your hands or your toes or whatever. They're positive and there's no parts of it. They're entire numbers. Now, if you add in their opposites, so you have your whole numbers, your 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, you add in their opposites. Now, again, 0 technically doesn't have an opposite, it would be itself. But if you take your whole numbers and you add all of their opposites together, which remember would be negatives, opposites of positives are negative numbers, you now have a new term. This is called your integer. An integer is a number that is either negative or positive and their whole number, negative, positive, or 0 and their whole numbers. So they're not fractions, they're not decimals. So your integers are your nice You can multiply them, you can divide them, you can add them, you can subtract them. You know, you don't have to worry about decimals, you don't have to worry about fractions. They're just nice numbers to work with. Now, that is not to say that you can't have positive or negative, say, fractions. They're not called integers, though. Once you start getting into numbers that aren't whole numbers or the opposites of whole numbers, you start looking at fractions or decimals. Generally speaking, as long as you can represent it in a fraction, it's called a rational number. So, once again, whole numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, positive, no negatives. Once you add their opposites, when you add the opposites of whole numbers, you now have integers. So integers has more numbers under it. And then once you add fractions to integers, positive and negative, you end up with something called rational numbers. So those are the new number systems we want to look at. Rational numbers is this huge, big umbrella if you want to think about it. It includes fractions. It includes integers. And remember that integers include negative numbers that are opposites of whole numbers, and then the whole numbers themselves. So we have a lot of systems going on where whole numbers is smallest. When you add the opposites to it, you get a little bit bigger with your integers. And then when you add fractions, positive and negative, to your integers, you end up with this gigantic family called rational numbers. Okay? And that's as far as we're going to get right now with extending the number system. Those are the three distinct things you need to know about: whole numbers, integers, and rational numbers.